Hello and welcome to the Animal Husbandry unit. For Animal Husbandry, it pays initially to create an overview of all the various inputs into that system and the outputs and the functions of that animal to create a big blueprint type map of the requirements and the production value of that particular animal. And then once you've done that for all of your different types of animals in your system, you can start to see the overlap of how the production of one system can help fulfill the input of another system to create a more diverse and interconnected production system on your farm. And the more you're able to do that, the more you can recreate the kind of functional diversity you get within a natural ecosystem, and the more stable and resilient that production system will become, and the less dependent upon inputs to sustain that production. So if we do a similar exercise for a chicken, where we overview the inputs into the production for that chicken, there's things like the provision of a natural habitat that will provide the foraging opportunities and provide roosting sites and shelter and protection from predators, and its ability to carry out its natural functions. So through providing that habitat to the chicken, you're going to provide the environment to optimize its health, optimize the production of high value outputs, and to keep it in the best state of health. So in that habitat that you provide, there should be a good diverse range of natural diet available, so insects and kind of herbaceous type plants is the natural diet of a chicken, so the provision of those resources to it will optimize its health. Having shelter, so that could be done in the context of a movable type chicken house, or it could be within a food forest type environment where it's protected against wind and rain and bright midday sunshine. But through considering its natural habitat, which is a rainforest type bird or a edge of a rainforest type habitat, recreating that kind of habitat is the best way to provide the range of inputs or the range of resources that it requires. Some other requirements are things like a dust bath, so to rid itself of mites and parasites and to keep its skin healthy. It likes to be able to roll around in dust and use that dust to naturally deter the pest insects from its skin. A nest site, so it needs somewhere secure to lay its eggs, and through providing a particular nest site you can then collect the eggs as a resource for production. Space to forage and fresh water. Social structure, so naturally chickens would have a rooster with a flock of 5 to 6 chickens, hens. So the more closely you can replicate that type of social structure, which is important to the well-being and the dynamics of that flock, the better in health they will become. So it's often a challenge in production to recreate that ideal flock structure, but if you go beyond a certain point, it can result in detrimental social structures evolving. So if you can keep a flock size under about 50 chickens, then it provides the opportunity for them to still have a few different groups within that and not be too overcrowded that you have a breakdown of those social structures and an increase in stress of the chickens. A roosting site, so that can be also within the movable frame that you move through the different sites, or it can be up in trees within their natural habitat, and protection from predators. So through recognising all the various inputs, you can then see how various other production systems on your property can help fulfill some of these nesting requirements. So nest sites and roosting sites, for example, may be provided by a movable structure, and so that might be a movable A-frame type structure that you can move through your property, and you may set that up with some solar panels on the side, and it's got some roosting platforms in there and some nesting boxes on the floor of that cart. And then the solar panel can power an electric grid fence that you can set up as a perimeter around where you set them up. And then you've got a movable structure that has the roosting, has the protection from predators, has the nesting site, and by moving it through your property you can provide fresh forage and good natural diet to those chickens. And as you're moving it through the property, you're taking advantage of the functions of the chicken. So the chickens are going to scratch and turn over the mulch, they're going to eat pest insects, they're going to eat seeds, they're going to break up and spread manures, and they're going to control weed growth. So in the areas in your property where that's an advantage, you can move this mobile chicken tractor through that property. So it could be following a herd of grazers, for example, on your property, and they're leaving dung on the property, and if that dung is just left there, then the pest cycles of the worms that are in that dung have an opportunity to go through their life cycle and reinfect the cows when they move through that property again. But the chickens will move through that after the cows and spread their manures and eat the worms that are in those manures so that they won't reinfect the cows when they're next through that site again. So by making use of their function of breaking up manures and eating pest insects, you're taking advantage of that function and tying it in with other production systems. You can also use them for like annual vegetables. So with annual vegetables, instead of tilling the ground and removing all your pest insects and weeding that area that you want to do and fertilise that area in preparation for replanting it again, once you've finished harvesting your crops, you can dump a whole lot of kitchen scraps and mulch on that site, and the chickens will move those that mulch around that site. They'll eat the kitchen scraps, they'll eat any of the pest weeds and the pest insects that are on that site, and they'll fertilise that site with their manures, so that when you move them on with their chicken tractor, you can replant that section, and you might need to reshape your beds and do your planting, but you're minimalising a lot of your jobs as far as preparation of that bed by taking advantage of the natural function of the chickens. And in other situations, for a food forest, for example, for a food forest to become established, again, you can break that ground with the function of the chickens. So instead of having to clear away the weeds and fertilise that site and to spread mulch around that site in preparation for planting your food forest, you can move the chickens through that site, dump a whole lot of piles of mulch in different locations there, and they will clear away the weeds, they'll eat away the pest insects, they'll manure that site, and they'll spread the mulch around. And then as you move them on, you can then plant your food forest plants in the wake of where they've moved from. And then you can bring them around for second cycles. So after the cows have been through that site again, or after you've harvested your annual vegetables, or after a year's worth of growth in your food forest and you want to clear out the understory of weeds and re-fertilise those trees and get rid of any of the pests and weeds that are on that ground, you can bring those chickens back through again and they'll carry out that beneficial function again. So you have this cyclical movement of your production animals through that property, where you take advantage of their functions and you tie it in with other types of production systems in an advantageous way that replicates some of the functional complexity that you see in nature. And of course, recognising that the benefits of the outputs of the production, you want to be able to set up your system so that you can harvest your outputs as efficiently as possible. So by containing them within a mobile structure like this with roosting and nesting sites, you can collect your eggs efficiently, You can train them to return into here so that you can move them along. So you feed them inside the shelter so that they'll return to eat and roost in there, and you can then knock down your fences and close this up and then move it to your new location so you can move them quite efficiently, and that will also allow you to catch them and harvest the chickens quite easily as well. And then it's a matter of seeing what kind of use you can make from that, and trying to make use of all the different production possibilities. So you can use bones for broths, or you can burn them, pulverize them and add them to fertilizers. You've got new chicks for resale. You've got feathers that you can use for quilts or pillows, or you can burn them and use them in fertilizers. And you've got eggs and meat, of course. So by mapping all of these different aspects out, the inputs, the functions and the outputs, you can start to think about how it ties in with the rest of the property. What are the requirements that you need to provide for that particular animal to give it a nice natural habitat and a natural diet which provides all their various resources? How can you make use of the functions to take the most benefit of their functions within the property? And how can you make the best use of the outputs of that particular animal? And it's a worthwhile exercise to do this for all the various animals that you are going to have within your property.